so much for being here. I really appreciate everybody taking the time, and hope everybody's enjoying their summer despite COVID. My name is Putnam, and I work for the Office of Consumer Affairs and Business Regulation. We are a state agency located in downtown Boston, and part of my job is to get out into the communities. Though with COVID, we are doing it virtually, which has been kind of interesting and fun. Although I have to say, it has been really nice because I've been able to get to different communities a lot easier, as opposed to driving for 2 or 3 hours and then speaking and then coming home for 2-hour drive. But that being said, so I really appreciate everybody taking the time. So we have 5 state agencies that are underneath the Consumer Affairs umbrella. We have the Division of Banks, Insurance, Professional Licensure, Telecommunications and Cable, and Standards. So if you ever have an issue with something that's going on in your life, whether you don't understand your cable bill or there's something going on with your insurance carrier, please feel free to reach out to our agency. We have a consumer hotline that is run Monday through Friday from 9 to 4:30, and we are answering the phone. You will get a physical person who will answer. The phone number is 617-973-8787. And we take hundreds of calls every week, especially during COVID, when people have lots of questions regarding maybe a new mandate that the governor may have put out. We also have lots of information that we put out through our blog posts, our website. Our website is mass.gov/consumer. We put a lot of information out via not text messages, through our Facebook page. We put out blog posts. We put out information as soon as we hear about it, and especially during this situation, we hear about a lot of scams. So we try to put out that information as well, so people can read up what's going on. I'll have my colleague Amy Schram introduce herself. We have been collaborating for the last 5 years, giving these presentations, and I'll have her introduce herself.
Good morning, and thank you to everyone that's tuning in to hear this program. It's just incredibly relevant and necessary. And Robin and I have been collaborating, for the last few years, and I have a feeling we'll be collaborating for the next few as well, because the subject matter is just so incredibly important to continue to educate ourselves on. But I just did want to introduce myself and the organization I represent. I do represent the Better Business Bureau. We are a 108-year-old nonprofit organization. Our office, the office that I represent, is located in Marlborough, Massachusetts. We are known as the Better Business Bureau, serving Eastern Massachusetts, Maine, Vermont, and Rhode Island, because we serve Eastern Massachusetts, Maine, Vermont, and Rhode Island. And we just want people to know that you can contact us via our website, bbb.org, via our phone number, 508-652-4800. If you have a question about a business, we have a database of over 6 million businesses that have been rated and reviewed. We want people to know that you can utilize us in advance of making purchasing decisions or signing contracts or whatever it might be, sort of choosing which business to work with depending on the industry. And we have information on any type of business. It could be a chiropractor, to a physical therapist, to a home contractor, to a plumber, to an auto mechanic, to a yoga studio, any type of business that you might want to find information on. We cover every industry. It's not just a specific niche. And so you can contact us and let us know if you have a question about a business, about a charity organization. We have a charity portion of our website as well. You can access it via give.org, or you can just you can access it via bbb.org, or you can just type give.org into the search bar, and you will be moved over to our BBB Wise Giving Alliance, where again we have information on charities, or you can visit our website to stay up to date on the latest scams or to report scams that you may have been experiencing, whether it's a phone call, an email, a letter, a text message, someone knocking door to door, because we know that'll start up again at some point. And in some communities, actually, it already has. There are some fly-by-night contractors or cleanup crews that are going around now that that the hurricane had happened just last week, in the storm, and there were a lot of trees that were down, and so we've had a lot of reports from people saying that people were claiming that they would help clean up their yards and fix their houses and things like that, paying them, and then they don't show up. So it is still relevant, it's still happening, and it's something that you can come to us about. And in particular, because we have what's known as a BBB scam tracker, and it is somewhere for us to go to report what we have experienced, and we don't have to have fallen victim in order to have experienced it. Just receiving the email or the text message alone or the phone call is experience enough just to report any piece of information you can. And because people are constantly visiting the website and reporting, it means that it's constantly generating all of this information so that we can just go and stay up to date on what other people are experiencing. So whether you want to report or just stay educated on what other people have been reporting, it's just an incredible resource tool. And it really kind of ties into, to what we're going to get into today, of course, because it's called a scam tracker, but specifically because all the information that we share, that we take in via our scam tracker, we share with the Federal Trade Commission. And then the Federal Trade Commission is the agency that works with authorities and other agencies to help combat a lot of the issues that we face and we deal with. And in particular, the Federal Trade Commission worked with the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, over the course of the last year and a half or so, maybe 2 years at this point. And I'll let Robin kick us off by mentioning what that looked like and how that was incredibly beneficial for us.
Sure. So yes, Amy mentioned the Federal Communications Commission. So they roll out a new program about a little over a year ago. It's called Shake and Stir, and what it does, it's to try to combat robocalls. What they do, generally, this program has done is it authenticates caller A before it gets to caller B, so that their whole computer system will recognize either a fraudulent call or a robocall, so that when it gets to you, it might pop up on your screen saying possible scam or a question mark or scam. And what it does is basically alerting you to say, you might not want to pick up this call because it is registering as a scam. And they have been working with all of our, all of our carriers nationwide, like AT&T and Verizon. So I actually notice it on my cell phone from time to time. If a call comes in, it will say scam if it's registering as a scam. So it's been actually quite helpful, and it has cut down on the robocalls that people are receiving, which is wonderful. So if you do get a call and it says possible scam, don't answer the phone. It's just their website and their program running and making sure it's working correctly. But that being said, Amy and I have always mentioned, if you don't recognize a call that comes in, the phone number, don't answer it. Don't answer it 100%. If it says police department, or it says IRS or my office or Amy's office, don't answer the phone. Unless you know someone directly who works for the police department. I am not knocking our police department. But if you don't know someone who works for the police department, there's no reason for them to physically call you. It's just one of those things. Most likely it's a scammer impersonating a government agency or the police or the fire department or the IRS. And unfortunately, there was someone who, for a little bit, was impersonating my office, Office of Consumer Affairs, and calling consumers in Massachusetts and asking for very personal information, social security numbers, and bank account information. And it's just important to know that our office is never going to call you randomly out of the blue. We don't have the time to do that physically. If you leave us a voicemail because we couldn't get to the phone quick enough, just yes, we will call you back. Or if you email us and ask us to call you, we will call you, absolutely. But it's just important to know that these government agencies, Amy's office, my office, we're never going to randomly call you, and we're certainly not going to ask you for personal information. And it's just one of those things that the scammers, quite honestly, have really been doing quite so often, and they're doing it more so because they know worldwide, nationwide, we're all home. We're home, we're stuck. because of this pandemic, and we are a little bit more apt to answer the phone because we're tired, we're cranky, we're lonely, we want to talk to somebody. If you don't recognize that number, don't pick it up. And what's interesting is you can download, there are apps that you could put on your smartphone and it will scramble the phone number. So when I call you, I could scramble my own phone number. So when it pops up on your, your screen, it might say IRS, it might say Washington, D.C., or fire department, or you name it. So if you don't recognize that number, or it says it's the IRS, most likely, I don't think the IRS is going to be randomly calling you. They're going to send you 2 pieces of mail first before they try to reach out to you. It's just one of those things that the scammers know we're curious, and they know that we're home, and will probably pick up if it says the right area code and the right exchange for your town. But it's just really important to not answer that phone. And the more times that we keep picking up the phone, the scammer actually makes money. So as soon as you pick up the phone, they know it's a working number. They know they're going to get a human being. They're going to sell your phone number to another scammer. And they're going to say, hey, she picked up and answered the phone at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday. I think you should call her 3 o'clock every day. Just offer her a new credit card, offer to whatever the offer may be. Tell her she's won the lottery. Tell her she needs a new roof, whatever that it may be. It's really important to just simply don't answer the phone.
Mm-hmm. It really is remarkable how simple the 2 major tactics that the scammers have used over the course of the last few years, how effective they've been, but how simple and basic they are to, for instance, like Robin said, call and pretend to be like from the IRS, let's say. They're calling and impersonating any business or any industry, and why not? We're more likely to at least pay attention a little bit longer if someone is calling and saying that they're from our bank, our credit card provider, Medicare, Social Security Administration, IRS. There's a reason that they're using that imposter tactic, because they know that if they are misrepresenting a real business or a real government agency, at least we have heard of that real business or heard of that government agency. We are far more likely to stay on the line if we answer and someone says that they're from our bank, as opposed to, maybe some of the calls that we've received in years past, which was and years ago, where people would call and say that, we won a free timeshare or a free cruise or a free vacation, or we won the lottery. And, it might pique our interest for a moment, because who wouldn't love all those things? But we know the big red flags go waving. We know that it's incredibly unrealistic. What's not something that would send the big red flags waving necessarily is to hear the name of our actual bank calling us, or our actual phone provider or cable provider, whatever it might be. And it's very simple. What an easy tactic for them to have come up with. And then to Robin's point about the caller ID, another simple tactic. We aren't as likely to answer the phone if we look at our caller ID and we see Jamaica pop up, or we see, a really long number that exceeds any numbers that we would have in the United States, or a local area code even, if it doesn't look super familiar, or even if it's just out of state. But the scammers know that the closer they get to us, the more likely it is that we'll answer. And so that's why they'll do that. Or sometimes they'll pop up on the caller ID. It will say, Internal Revenue Service, or it will say Social Security Administration, or it will say the name of your local police department, or Council on Aging even, or something like that, or the name of a neighbor or a friend. It's just a tactic that they're using so that we answer. And just like Robin said, answering is one of the in a sense, one of the most dangerous things we can do, because it just opens up the door. It's now allowing the scammer to know that they've reached a human, and then they can go and sell our information. So more scammers can feel like if they call our number, they're going to reach someone. And the same goes for emails as well. It's the same type of tactic. It's an email that will look very official. It will have the heading and the logo and the text that looks like it's coming from a real business that we may associate ourselves with. Some of the biggest email phishing scams, they're called email phishing scams, have been misrepresentations of the IRS, Bank of America, FedEx, UPS, Verizon, Comcast. The Better Business Bureau was spoofed. Robin was mentioning that her office was spoofed via phone calls. Our office was spoofed via emails and has, on occasion. And if you receive an email, let's say you're a business owner and you receive an email that looks like it's coming from the Better Business Bureau and it says, "Dear accredited business," or "Dear BBB member, there's been a complaint filed against you. Click on this link to dispute the claim or to respond or engage, whatever it might be," you're probably going to click on that link because you're going to want to handle the situation. You don't want to be seen in a bad light as a business owner or whatever it might be. And so we have to be very, very cautious that although the emails themselves, we want to try to, prohibit ourselves from clicking on and opening just to start. It's typically the link that's embedded within the email. It'll be some sort of call to action. Click here to update your information. Click here to read more. Click here to see how our policies are changing. And if it's a business that you regularly affiliate with, if it's your phone provider or looks like it's coming from your phone provider, there will be less hesitation to click on the links. But there should always be hesitation to click on the links, no matter how official it looks. And the best thing we can do is pick up the phone and initiate the call with whatever business it is that is being represented or misrepresented via email. And the same goes for phones as well.
Yes, Amy really brings up a good point. You just got to you have to be on your toes, unfortunately, especially with the emails. I know that we're all getting the calls, and it's a little bit easier just to ignore it and just go about your day. But it's another thing when you do receive an email that might look a little fishy, but maybe it is your bank, maybe it is your credit card company or your mortgage, your lender. You really have to take that step back and take a moment and think, is my bank really calling to update and verify my social security number? It's as silly as that may sound. There are a lot of phishing emails that are going on, and they're attacking large corporations. They're attacking universities, hospitals, and it's just, it's sad because it is what it is, but it's especially when you see these emails. I mean, I've received a lot of emails lately, and as Amy mentioned, it's pretty easy to see if it's a phishing email by how they're asking, what they're asking for, what they're asking you to do. You can just notice if you hover your mouse over the email address of the sender, it will pop up. The whole email address will pop up, and you can see it's customer service at bankofamerica.com. And I'm not picking on Bank of America. I'm just using them as an example. I am a Bank of America customer, and whenever I do receive an email that's legitimate, it says, "Dear Miss Putnam, dear Robin." They call me out specifically. And the phishing ones that I receive are "Dear loyal customer," and it's all spelled incorrectly. So you have to just kind of take a step back and kind of look and think, is this legitimate? It seems a little crazy. And if you're still not 100% sure, simply reach out to your bank, call your credit card company and say, I just got this funny email. Do you need me to update some information? Is there something going on with my accounts? Can you help me? And they will be very happy that you have called, because then they can tell you, actually, that wasn't us. Did you give any personal information away to whomever was the caller was, or did you email somebody back any personal information? Let's go through this. Let's see what we need to do for you. Or they might say, yes, actually, that was us. We have some charges that we don't think are yours. Let's go through your recent charges. Either way, they're going to want to have a conversation with you, especially, I think, during COVID, we're going to get bombarded. Whether it's personal protective gear, click here if you want to order more masks, more gloves, more whatever it may be, or click here if you want to order hand sanitizer. And I know that, unfortunately, toilet paper for a long time was high on the list for people to hoard. Click here if you'd like to order 10 cases of toilet paper. You just have to really, really take a step back and think, okay, what am I clicking on? Who is the seller? Is it a company that you've heard of? Is it a company that's outside of the United States? it can be a little bit challenging to figure out who the sender is, or who the company is. But if you do a simple internet search, you can actually go to Amy's website, Better Business Bureau, and type in the company name, if there's any fraudulent information about them. I've done that many times with different companies that I saw an advertisement for, say on Instagram or Facebook. If it's an advertisement that looks too good to be true, it probably is. But I've just gone to a search engine and typed in the company name and typed in reviews and hit enter, and all of a sudden lots and lots of reviews, good, bad, or indifferent, will pop up. And they'll tell you if it's a fraudulent company or how that company has been dealing with consumers, or etc. So you have to be very careful, especially because we are home. We're all shopping online. We're not going to the grocery store. We're ordering this, we're ordering that, and that's totally understandable. But you really have to make sure you've heard of these companies before you decide to place an order. There are lots of fraudulent companies. Anybody can pay and have an advertisement put on Instagram or put on Facebook or your Google search or whatever search engine you use. Anybody can place an ad. They can spend $500 or $600, and their ad will pop up right front and forward. So you just have to be careful. If you haven't heard of this company, look them up online. Call Amy's office, call our office. We'll be happy to help you out. But it's just, you have to be very careful. And I think the same thing goes with a third-party seller that you may be dealing with, say, on Instagram or Facebook or Amazon or any of those big search engines. Make sure you look at those reviews and see how they handle customer disputes. If there are any customer disputes, it's one of those things that will help keep you a little bit safer, especially during this time. I know everybody's home, and I'm home too. Amy and I are both working from home, but it's just, you have to take those extra few steps before you do all of your online shopping, I think.
Yeah, Robert brings up such an important piece to everything that we're all, going through right now. It's that we're home, and the scammers know that, and so they'll take advantage of that. And also because we're home and we are making more online purchases, I think it's more important than ever to reiterate to those that aren't already aware that a credit card is a much safer method of payment than a debit card to use in general, if we're being honest, but online especially. And we've recommended for years that even if you have switched over to a credit card and you do use credit cards for online purchases, even taking it one step further and designating just one credit card for all of your online purchases, it just really streamlines your accounts and your personal information, and it makes it so that if there ever is a breach online at a store that you had shopped at, or your personal computer has been hacked into, or your personal account has been hacked into, the only piece of monetary information that they'll be able to obtain is that one credit card number. And it's safer for a multitude of reasons. And one of the simple reasons is that your credit card isn't attached to your cash like your debit card is. So if someone gets a hold of it, they can't extract every last penny that you have. And we should mention that although it's just as possible for someone to get a hold of your debit card number as it is your credit card, and they can make a transaction with the credit card and extract money with your debit, it will take 2 to 3 months either way to dispute the charges with your bank or with your credit card provider. It's just that if it was the credit card, you aren't without your cash, you aren't without those funds for the duration that it takes to dispute the charges, if it's 2 to 3 months or however long it ends up lasting. And that's if you're able to get it back. And one of the easiest ways, or I hesitate to say surefire ways to get your money back or to rectify the situation is to report it as quickly as possible. It's not a guarantee in any way that you'll be able to get it back. Typically people do, but it's more guaranteed if you can notice it sooner rather than later and contact your bank and contact your credit card providers as soon as possible and let them know there may have been a discrepancy with one of your cards or one of your accounts. And it's just incredibly beneficial because, while our banks and credit cards our credit card providers are very closely monitoring our accounts, because they're really monitoring. They know how easy it is for fraudsters to commit, scammers to commit fraud, and so on and so forth. They're monitoring. But it's really tricky because the fraudsters now are not necessarily going after one account and one individual and trying to extract an exorbitant amount of money, $500, $5,000, however much, out of one person's account. They are now, taking their time and finding it more lucrative to scam, let's say, 5,000 people out of $1 each, because it is far less likely that people are going to notice a $1 charge as opposed to if they had just tried to scam one person out of $5,000. That bank is going to red flag that as unusual. For most people, a $5,000 purchase or transaction is unusual, so the bank would flag that as opposed to $1 or $2. And for years, I think it's sort of been circulating, look for the smaller charges. And I think in our minds, a lot of our minds, we thought, okay, well, smaller to a scammer is 100 or 200 or 50 or something. No, small is really, really small. It's $1 or $2. It can be 50, but more likely than not, it's going to be small, because we're 1 in a million to these scammers, which in one sense is very comforting, that we know we're not targeted specifically, and in another sense, then we end up worrying about everybody, because we know that, it could be everyone within our one community that's being targeted, or whatever it might be. But be very, very aware that we just have to closely monitor our bank statements and our credit card statements, and the moment we notice those smaller discrepancies, contact the bank, contact your credit card provider, and at the very least, they'll put a fraud alert on your account, and then perhaps maybe they'll realize that it's something more, and they may cancel your card and send you a new one, and that way anyone that has that information won't be able to use it and commit any more fraud on those particular accounts.
Yeah, I think Amy hit the nail on the head. If you're monitoring your accounts, you'll see if something just doesn't make a little bit of sense. And it is important to act fast. If you see a $3 charge that you don't recognize, don't let it go by. Don't say, oh, well, if it's there next month, maybe I'll deal with it then. Deal with it today. Call your bank, call your credit card company. Maybe it is yours. Maybe it's another charge that you didn't recognize, but it really is yours. But you're better off to immediately talk to your lender and say, I don't recognize this. And I think another step I think we all should take, because there are a lot of data breaches, because there's so many phishing emails that are being sent out, and phone calls and text messages. We really got to be careful about your phones. They're little mini computers, and the scammers are going after people, especially the younger generation, with text messages, because they know the 20-somethings are constantly on their phone and not paying attention, and they'll get a text message that says, could you click here and verify and update your social security number? And it looks like it might be from your bank. Don't click on anything. Let it go. Throw the text message out. Try to block the text message, the sender. That's pretty easy to do as well. If you have a smartphone, it's just, they'll try anything. And you just you never know what they're going to do, when they're going to do it. But another tactic that I think that everybody should be doing as well is to, obviously with monitoring your accounts, but you should also do a free credit check. It doesn't take very much time. You can go to annualcreditreport.com. It probably will take you 30 minutes per credit reporting agency. You want to look at everything that's listed on your credit report. Does it make sense? Is it really yours? The credit cards that are listed, were those yours? Are they yours? If there is a mortgage that's listed, or a school, if you took a loan out for your school, to go to school, is your name spelled correctly? Are you listed as dead? As crazy as that sounds, we did meet a consumer giving a lecture at one point. One of the credit reporting agencies had her listed as passed away. So she had to prove to the credit reporting agency that she was still alive. As crazy as that sounds, but things happen. And it's pretty much the only way you're ever going to know if someone has taken your social security number and used it and abused it. If you notice something, you can dispute it with the credit reporting agency. take it another step forward and freeze your credit. It's not going to affect your current lines of credit. What it's going to do is make it almost impossible for a fraudster to open up new lines of credit in your name. It's just one of those things. It is free. It doesn't take very much time. If you need to open up a new line of credit, you can call the automated system for all three of the bureaus and have it unfrozen. It doesn't take very much time. I had to recently do it when I applied for a mortgage. It took maybe an hour or two to unfreeze all three of the credit bureaus. They ran my credit. I got a mortgage, and I froze it right back up. Honestly, it doesn't take very much time. If you have children or grandchildren, children who are 18 and younger are 52 times more likely to have their Social Security number stolen and abused. Because a fraudster knows that mom and dad probably won't do a credit check on little Susie if she's 4 or 5. Why would they? She's 4 or 5. She shouldn't have any lines of credit. And that's why they go after children, because they know they are an easy target and they have perfectly clean credit history. So if you have kids, you really should check a child as well and freeze their credit until they turn 18, and they can monitor their own credit from there on.
And one of the other ways that we can really protect ourselves from fraud, and it ties into, our banks and our credit card providers and the credit bureaus as well. It's really just about like password management, to put it simply. Our passwords for any of our accounts, if it's to get into our bank account, if we do online banking, it's when we call our bank and we need to verify and validate that we are who we are. Our credit card providers, sometimes our phone providers or cable providers will have that set up for us. It's really important that the passwords that we set up, and this also goes, of course, for our emails, our social media accounts, any other accounts that we have online, the passwords that we set up should really be incredibly tricky and authentic to one another. So not only should our passwords be unique, should our passwords be difficult and long, and not necessarily be our mother's maiden name, our favorite color, what mascot our high school mascot was, or even just the town we grew up in. We should really avoid those very simple, passwords. It's almost like having your password be password 1234. They should be incredibly, what we would really think would be difficult for a scammer to get a hold of, but also unique to each account that we have. So we shouldn't use the same password for every account, because if a scammer gets into one, they're going to use that same password and try to get into all your other ones. And so it's much more beneficial for us to have different passwords, varying passwords. And then also to make sure that the verification questions that we're setting up with those institutions, our banks and credit card providers, are something that we will remember. Robin always jokes that she was asked once that maybe her question would be, who did you go to prom with? And, she couldn't remember. And he said, well, let's think of a question that you'll definitely remember. And it's important to do that, because we won't be able to access our own accounts if we can't remember those things. But it is important to set up those questions and to call your bank and call your credit card provider and say, I was just wondering what my I just want to verify what my verification questions are with you. And then maybe, is there a way that we could maybe change them? And I will say that a lot of the institutions that we work with are changing their policy to include more unique and difficult questions. And when I say difficult, we really mean more difficult for the fraudsters to get a hold of. We don't want to make it difficult for us to get in, but we should say that if it's easy for us to get in, then it's probably going to be easy for the scammers to get in. And it's just a little thing that we can do that in the end is going to really play a big part in terms of protecting ourselves from fraud and identity theft.
Mm-hmm. And I think we can sort of wrap it up, but I think if anybody has questions, comments, concerns about things, please feel free to reach out to Amy's office or my office. We are both of our offices are taking calls Monday through Friday. You will get a human being who will answer the phone. If you leave us a message, we will definitely call you back on a regular business day. I think it's just really important to know that your agencies are out there. We are answering questions. If you have a question, a comment, a concern, please feel free to reach out. Our office, the phone number is 617-973-8787. And you can also email us, consumer@mass.gov. And Amy can put up her information as well.
Sure. Our phone number again is 508-652-4800. And our email address is info@boston.bbb.org, or you can access all that information via bbb.org.
And thank you so much for kind of listening in, and feel free to reach out to us.